Okay, so you wanted the inside scoop on Apple, right? Well, we got it.
Yeah.
We went deep into their 2024 Form 10K.
It's
That's the big report they file with the SEC every year.
yeah,
Like their annual report card.
it's like their yearly confession.
Right, spilling all the beans about their wins, their losses, and, maybe even what keeps them up at night.
Yeah, and this year's, I got to say, is pretty juicy.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah.
Give us a taste.
We're talking about the fiscal year ending September 28th, 2024.
Okay.
And there's a lot to unpack here.
All right, well, let's skip the boring financial jargon.
Yeah.
Give us those aha moments, those insights, that give you a real feel for what's going on behind the scenes at Apple.
Right. So big picture first.
Yeah.
Apple's got a ton of common stock out there.
Right.
Over 15 billion shares.
15 billion? That's billion with a B. I mean,
Yeah.
that's a lot of stock.
Huge.
But here's the thing. Their net sales actually dipped a little bit in 2024.
Yeah, that's right.
Down to $391 billion.
Yeah.
Still a lot of money, but still, it's a dip.
Yeah, and the 10K blames it on the economy, inflation,
Right, the usual suspects.
currency swings, you name it.
All that stuff.
But I think there's more to it than that.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm intrigued.
So if we look a little closer, we see their gross margin on products
Okay.
stayed pretty stable,
All right.
around 37%.
37%, that's not bad.
That's pretty good, yeah.
pretty healthy.
But then you look at their gross margin for services, and it's like, whoa, 73.9%.
Wait, 73, almost 74%?
Almost 74%.
That's insane.
It's wild.
Are they printing money over there?
It's like they found a money tree.
Right,
Yeah, and it's not an accident.
right. What do you mean?
This is, Apple's not just about those iPhones anymore.
Right.
They're playing the long game.
Okay.
They're building a services empire.
So it's not just the hardware.
Well,
You're
yeah.
saying it's about locking you into this whole ecosystem?
It's the ecosystem. It's the whole package.
Okay.
It's Apple Care. It's cloud services.
Right.
App Store, Apple TV Plus, so all of it.
Yeah, yeah.
They're weaving this sticky web,
I see what you're saying.
making it harder and harder to leave.
Yeah, I get it. Once you're in, you're in.
Exactly.
But this global reach, selling everywhere, that's got to come with some risks, right?
Oh, absolutely.
It can't all be smooth sailing.
No, they're facing some serious competition out there.
Okay.
Trying to stay one step ahead.
Right.
It's a constant battle.
So what are they dealing with?
Price wars,
Yeah.
people copying their every move,
Uh-huh.
and then just this constant pressure to innovate, right?
Yeah. Got to keep coming up with new stuff.
Yeah.
So it's like they're running a marathon, but at a sprint's pace.
Yeah, exactly.
And speaking of marathons, let's talk about their supply chain.
Ooh.
Getting all those components from all over the world, that's got to be a logistical nightmare, right?
It is.
How do they even manage that?
And the 10K actually points out some vulnerabilities there.
Uh-oh. Like what?
Well, they rely on single or limited sources for some pretty key components.
Okay, so what could go wrong there?
Well, remember that semiconductor shortage?
Yeah.
That really threw a wrench in iPhone production.
It did.
Any little hiccup in that supply chain can have huge ripple effects.
Right.
And it can end up costing you money.
So it's like one of those giant Jenga towers.
Yes.
You pull the wrong piece, the whole thing collapses.
Exactly.
But they do have one ace up their sleeve, right?
They do.
Research and development.
That's their secret weapon.
Is what they're known for.
Yeah. And the 10K, it really emphasizes how crucial R&D is to their success.
Okay.
They design practically everything in-house.
Really?
Hardware, software, the works.
Wow.
It gives them so much control.
But it's got to be expensive.
It is.
It's like a high-stakes gamble, right?
Yeah, well, yeah.
Pouring all that money into R&D, you never know if it's going to pay off.
Right.
But you got to stay ahead of the curve.
You do. And you got to try to predict what people are going to want next, right?
Outsmart the competition.
Yeah, exactly.
So what's in the pipeline?
Oh, well, the 10K gives us some hints, and let me tell you, it sounds pretty exciting.
Really? All right, well, we're going to have to wait for part 2 to hear about that.
You are.
But even with all that brain power, there's got to be some things that keep them up at night, right?
Sure.
They even have a whole section in the report dedicated to risk factors.
Yeah, it's like a whole laundry list of worries.
Okay, like what?
Well, we've already talked about some of them, like those supply chain issues,
Right.
the pressure to innovate.
Yeah.
But there's one that really jumped out at me, cybersecurity threats.
Oh, yeah.
With all the data they have,
They're a prime target.
they're a huge target.
One wrong move, and it could be a PR nightmare.
Oh, absolutely.
And then there's the whole legal minefield, right?
Yeah.
Patent lawsuits.
Constant headache.
And then regulators are breathing down their necks.
Especially when it comes to privacy and data protection.
Right, right. It's like they're walking a tightrope,
Mm-hmm.
trying to push the boundaries of technology.
Yeah.
But you got to stay on the right side of the law.
It's a tough balance.
And speaking of legal battles, can we talk about the elephant in the room?
Uh-oh.
That Irish tax saga.
Oh, that's a good one.
I mean, that's a story for the ages.
Yeah, so the European Commission basically decided that Apple got a sweetheart deal from Ireland.
Oh, really?
Yeah, essentially dodging billions in taxes.
Wow.
And after years of legal back and forth, the final verdict came down. Apple had to pay $15.8 billion.
Wait, 15.8 billion?
Billion.
That's like buying a small country.
I know, right?
That's a lot of money.
That's a lot of money.
So how did that hit their financials?
Well, they had to take a one-time income tax charge of $10.2 billion.
Ouch.
Yeah, that's got to sting even for Apple.
That's an expensive legal battle.
It is.
But this goes beyond Apple, right?
Oh, absolutely.
This raises some big questions about how multinational companies operate.
Yeah, how they play the tax game.
Right.
It's a complex issue.
For sure.
It's not an easy one to solve.
No.
But it shows that even tech giants have to answer to someone.
Sometimes it comes with a hefty price tag.
Yeah,
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here.
we have.
We've seen Apple flexing their muscles, but they're also grappling with some serious challenges. It's a delicate balance.
It is. And remember, we're just scratching the surface here.
Right.
This 10K, it's a treasure trove of information.
Okay, so there's more to come.
Oh, yeah.
All right, listeners, buckle up.
That ready.
In the next part, we're going to dive even deeper into this whole services strategy
That's right.
and explore just how far Apple's reach extends across the globe.
It's going to be a wild ride.
Stay tuned.
We'll be right back.
Welcome back to our deep dive into Apple's world.
All right, so let's talk about this strategic shift toward services.
Yeah, it's more than just Apple trying to make an extra buck, right?
Right.
They're really trying to lock in their users.
Yeah, it's like building a fortress around their user base.
That's a good way to put it.
It's like they're saying, come on in, but you're never leaving.
Exactly. Exactly. They're betting that if they offer this seamless, integrated experience across all their devices and all these services,
Right.
that people will just be hooked.
It's almost like they're creating their own exclusive club,
Yeah.
but one that everyone wants to be a part of.
Yeah, and that's the thing, right?
Yeah.
Once you've got the iPhone, you've got the AirPods, maybe you even got the Apple Watch. I mean, it's so easy to just get sucked into all the services, too.
Yeah, you're already using their hardware, you're using their software.
Right.
So why not just use Apple Music or iCloud? It just makes sense.
It just makes sense. It's all about convenience.
It is.
And that whole it just works magic that Apple's so good at.
Exactly.
But from a business standpoint, I mean, this is brilliant, right?
Oh, it's genius.
Because services, they generate recurring revenue. So it's not as dependent on those big hardware launches.
It's a steady stream of income.
Right.
It's not just a one-time purchase.
So is this a win-win?
Well, it depends who you ask.
Okay.
Some people argue that this closed ecosystem
Right.
that Apple has built, it stifles competition
Okay.
and it limits consumer choice.
I mean, look at the App Store, right?
Exactly.
Apple, they're the gatekeepers.
Right.
They set the rules. They take a cut of the profits. So there's definitely been some pushback on that.
There has been.
But Apple, they defend their approach, right?
They do.
They say it's all about maintaining quality and security for their users.
Right. They want to make sure that the apps on their platform are high quality.
Right.
That they're safe, that they're not going to harm your device.
Yeah. And to be fair, Apple's App Store has been relatively free of malware
It has.
compared to some other platforms.
Yeah.
So I guess there are pros and cons to consider, right?
There are.
It's convenience and security
Right.
versus open competition and choice.
Exactly. It's a trade-off. And the 10K actually hints at some potential cracks in this strategy, too.
Oh, really? Like what?
Well, they're feeling pressure from free content models.
Free content models. What do you mean?
Well, think about services like Spotify and Netflix, right?
Okay.
They offer free or ad-supported tiers,
Right.
and that's a threat to Apple.
I see. Because Apple, they're all about those paid subscriptions.
They are.
So if people can get similar services for free or cheaper, that's a problem for Apple.
Exactly. So Apple has to keep innovating, right?
Yeah.
They got to keep giving people reasons to pay for their services.
So they don't jump ship.
Exactly.
It's a constant battle to stay ahead of the curve.
It is, just like in the hardware race. But let's zoom out a little bit
Okay.
and look at the bigger picture.
Okay.
Apple's not just trying to be a hardware company anymore.
Right.
They want to control your entire digital life.
So they're going for the whole enchilada.
They want to be the puppet master.
Okay.
You know, they want to control the device you hold in your hand,
Right.
the content you consume, the services you use.
Everything.
Everything.
How? I mean, that's a lot of power.
It is a lot of power.
And it raises some serious questions about privacy,
Right.
about data security, and even about competition in the tech industry.
Yeah, if Apple controls everything, then what happens to all the other companies?
Right, right.
What happens to innovation?
It makes you think about the role these tech giants are playing in our lives.
They are shaping the future.
They really are.
And the decisions they make,
Right.
the strategies they pursue,
Yeah.
they have ripple effects.
And we're only starting to understand what those ripple effects are.
We are.
It's a bit of a double-edged sword, isn't it?
It is?
It's exciting, but it's also a little bit terrifying.
Yeah, for sure.
But let's shift gears a bit
Okay.
and talk about Apple's global reach.
All right.
I mean, they're practically selling iPhones on every street corner, right?
Almost.
But as we mentioned earlier, international sales, they make up a huge chunk of their revenue.
Over half their sales come from outside the U.S.
That's impressive.
It is.
But it's also got to come with some risks.
Oh, absolutely. The 10K doesn't shy away from that.
So what are they worried about?
Well, think about it.
Okay.
Operating on a global scale, that's complex.
Right.
Managing all those supply chains, all those different continents, that's a huge logistical challenge.
Yeah, I can imagine. And we already talked about those supply chain disruptions, right?
Right.
But there are other things too, right?
Oh, yeah.
Like what happens if there's political instability in a key market or an economic downturn?
Those are all risks.
Apple's exposed to a whole range of geopolitical risks.
They are.
Changes in trade policies, currency fluctuations, even political unrest.
All of that can affect their bottom line.
So it's a constant game of adaptation.
It is.
They have to navigate all these different regulatory environments, different cultures, different consumer preferences.
Part of the world.
It sounds exhausting.
It is.
It must take a very skilled leadership team to juggle all that.
Oh, absolutely. And it takes flexibility.
Okay.
The 10K talks about how they've had to tailor their products and services to comply with specific regulations in different regions.
Right, like those changes they made to the App Store in the EU.
Exactly.
To address those concerns about anti-competitive practices.
Right.
So they're constantly making adjustments
Yeah.
just to stay competitive in different markets.
Right.
But being a global company, it's not all bad news.
Oh, of course not.
I mean, there are some advantages too.
Big advantages.
Like what?
Well, for one, they have access to a much wider pool of talent.
Right.
They can recruit the best and brightest minds from all over the world.
And they can tap into emerging markets
Exactly.
that are experiencing rapid growth.
Think about all those people in developing countries who are getting their first smartphones.
Right.
That's a huge opportunity for Apple.
It is. So it's a high-stakes game with both risks and rewards.
For sure.
But Apple seems to be doing pretty well so far.
They are. But the 10K is a good reminder
Of what?
that even the most successful companies are vulnerable to forces outside their control.
That's true. Makes their continued success even more remarkable.
It does. But there's another aspect of their global operations that we should talk about.
Okay, what's that?
Their manufacturing footprint.
Ah, yes.
The 10K mentions how much they rely on outsourcing partners.
Right, mostly in Asia.
Yeah, particularly in China.
Yeah, I mean, most of their products are assembled there.
They are.
I've heard some concerns about that, though.
There are definitely risks.
Like what?
Well, when you concentrate so much manufacturing in one region,
Right.
you become vulnerable to all sorts of things.
Like what?
Labor issues,
Yeah,
political instability,
right.
natural disasters.
That's a lot to worry about.
It is.
And then there's the issue of intellectual property protection, right?
It's a big one.
I mean, can Apple really be sure that their designs and their technologies are safe?
It's a valid concern. I mean,
Yeah.
the 10K talks about these significant investments they've made in manufacturing equipment,
Right.
but a lot of that equipment is held by their partners.
So they're putting a lot of trust in these relationships.
They are. And they know there are potential downsides.
Like what?
What if one of their partners has financial problems?
Oh, yeah.
Or what if there's some kind of disruption at their facility?
Right, that could ripple through the whole supply chain.
Exactly.
So it's a delicate balancing act,
It is.
weighing the benefits of outsourcing against all those potential risks. but it seems to have worked out pretty well for them so far.
It has, but it's something to keep an eye on.
Especially as geopolitical tensions rise
Right.
and the global landscape becomes more unpredictable.
Exactly.
Makes you wonder if they might have to diversify their manufacturing footprint at some point.
They might. I mean, they have started exploring some manufacturing options outside of China.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
But I imagine that's a huge undertaking.
Oh, it would be massive.
So it's a complex equation
It is.
with a lot of moving parts.
A lot of factors to consider.
But if you want to understand the challenges and opportunities that a company like Apple faces.
You got to understand those complexities.
Exactly.
And that's what makes the 10K so interesting.
It really does.
It's not just about the numbers.
It's a glimpse into their thinking.
It is. It's their strategic thinking, their risk assessment, how they adapt to a constantly changing world.
Well said. We've talked a lot about those external forces shaping Apple's business.
We have.
But what about their internal engine of innovation?
Yes.
Let's talk about their research and development efforts.
This is where Apple really shines.
They do. I'm always amazed by how many patents they file every year.
It's incredible.
They're constantly pushing the boundaries of technology.
They are. And they're not afraid to invest in R&D.
Well, the 10K shows they've been steadily increasing their R&D spending over the past few years.
They have.
But as we said before, R&D is inherently risky.
It is.
There's no guarantee that those investments are going to pay off.
That's true. But Apple has a pretty good track record.
They do.
They've turned a lot of risky bets into game-changing products and services.
I mean, think about the iPod,
Yeah.
the iPhone.
The Apple Watch.
These weren't just minor upgrades.
No.
They were revolutionary products.
We were.
They completely redefined entire industries.
And that's what sets Apple apart.
They're not just following trends.
They're creating them.
But innovation doesn't just happen by magic.
No, it doesn't.
The 10K talks about the challenges of attracting and retaining top talent in such a competitive industry.
Yeah, that's a big one.
I mean, they need to cultivate a culture that encourages creativity,
Right.
collaboration, a willingness to take risks.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And they got to offer competitive salaries and benefits.
Oh, for sure.
They got to lure the best and brightest minds.
Absolutely. And they need to stay ahead of the curve when it comes to emerging technologies, too.
Right. The 10K mentions their investments in AI,
Yeah.
machine learning,
Uh-huh.
augmented reality,
Hot topics.
all the buzzwords. But these technologies have the potential to transform everything.
They do. So Apple's looking to the future.
They are.
Mm.
They're positioning themselves to be leaders in these next-generation technologies.
They're playing the long game.
They are. They're
Oh.
investing in areas that might not pay off immediately,
Right.
but could have a huge impact in the years to come.
So it's not just about developing the next iPhone.
No.
It's about laying the foundation for the future of Apple.
And its role in the world.
Exactly.
And that future is probably going to be even more integrated into our lives than it is today.
I think so. As Apple expands its services,
Right.
and as we become more reliant on our digital ecosystems,
Yeah.
the impact of their R&D efforts is going to be felt everywhere.
It's a powerful thought.
It is.
The decisions they're making in their R&D labs right now
Mm-hmm.
could shape how we live, work, connect with each other in the years to come.
It's
That's what makes following Apple journey so fascinating.
It does.
They're not just a company.
Right.
They're a cultural force,
Yeah.
a symbol of innovation,
Mm-hmm.
of technological advancement.
Exactly. And the 10K gives us a glimpse into the minds of the people who are driving that force,
Yeah.
the challenges they face, the risks they take, their vision for the future. It's really quite remarkable.
It is. We've covered so much ground here.
We have.
Apple's strategic shift toward services,
Mm-hmm.
their global reach, their relentless pursuit of innovation.
Yeah.
We've explored so many facets of this tech giant.
We have. But there's one more crucial area we need to address.
Oh, okay. I'm all ears.
It's often overlooked, but it's essential to understanding Apple's long-term prospects.
What is it?
Risk.
Risk.
Every business faces risks,
Right.
but for a company operating at Apple scale,
Yeah,
those risks are amplified.
that makes sense.
Yeah.
So what are some of the key risk factors that jumped out at you from the 10K?
Well, we've already talked about some of them, right?
Yeah. The supply chain disruptions,
Mm-hmm.
the geopolitical tensions,
Yeah.
the pressure from free content models.
Right. But there are others that are specific to Apple's business.
Okay, give me the juicy details.
Yeah.
What else is keeping them up at night?
Cybersecurity threats.
Yeah, that's a big one.
Huge. I mean, Apple's a prime target for hackers.
Right, with all the data they have.
Exactly. And a data breach could be devastating.
Oh, for sure.
I mean, it could damage their reputation,
Right.
erode customer trust. Yeah, it's scary to think about how much data they hold.
It is.
And it seems like those threats are constantly evolving.
They are. And then there's the legal landscape.
Yeah.
Apple's constantly dealing with patent infringement lawsuits.
Right.
And those lawsuits can be incredibly expensive.
And time-consuming.
And then you've got the regulators breathing down their necks.
Right, especially when it comes to privacy and data protection.
Exactly. Governments all over the world are taking a closer look at how these tech giants operate.
Yeah, it's a tough environment to navigate.
It is. And those regulations are constantly changing.
Right.
So it's really hard for a global company like Apple to stay compliant everywhere they do business.
Sounds like they're walking a tightrope, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Trying to balance innovation
Yep.
with all these legal and ethical considerations.
It's a tough balancing act.
Mm.
And the 10K highlights the potential impact of all these risks.
So they're not sugarcoating it.
No. It's a good reminder that even a giant like Apple isn't invincible.
That's true, but they're not just sitting back and hoping for the best.
Right. They're not.
The report outlines some steps they're taking to mitigate these risks.
Right. They're investing heavily in cybersecurity.
Yeah.
They're building strong legal teams.
Mm-hmm.
And they're engaging with regulators.
To try to shape policy.
Exactly. They're also diversifying their supply chain.
Right, like we talked about.
And they're looking at manufacturing options outside of China.
So they're being proactive.
They have to be. The stakes are too high to ignore these threats.
I agree. And it makes their continued success even more impressive.
It does. They're navigating a complex business landscape
Mm-hmm.
while facing all these potential risks and challenges.
It's a testament to their leadership,
Mm-hmm.
their strategic thinking,
Right.
their ability to adapt to a changing world.
Exactly.
And it makes their journey all the more compelling to follow.
It does. Now let's circle back to something we touched on earlier.
Okay.
The Irish tax saga.
Ah, yes, that was a big one.
It was. And it has implications that go far beyond Apple.
Right. It highlights those complexities of international tax law
Mm-hmm.
and how multinational corporations structure their operations to, well, avoid paying taxes.
Right. The European Commission ruled that Apple received illegal state aid from Ireland.
Okay.
And that triggered a years-long legal battle.
Which ultimately ended with Apple having to pay $15.8 billion in back taxes.
a lot of money.
An astronomical sum, even for a company as profitable as Apple.
It is. And it raises questions about the fairness of the global tax system
Right.
and the role of governments in regulating these multinational corporations.
It's a complicated issue.
It is, with no easy answers.
No easy answers. But it's a reminder that even giants like Apple have to play by the rules.
They do,
Yeah.
or face the consequences.
Exactly.
And it highlights the importance of transparency and accountability in the tech industry.
Especially as these companies become more powerful and influential.
Exactly. We need to make sure they're operating within the law and that they're paying their fair share.
Absolutely. We need to hold them to the same standards as any other business.
We do. And that's why cases like the Irish tax saga are so important.
They force us to confront these issues
They do.
and to demand answers from those in power.
Exactly.
Well, this deep dive has been a real eye-opener.
It have been.
We've explored Apple's strategic shift towards services,
Mhm.
their global reach,
Yep.
their relentless pursuit of innovation,
Right.
and the risks and challenges they face.
We've covered a lot of ground.
We have, but we've only scratched the surface.
We have. This 10K is a gold mine of information.
It is.
It offers a really valuable look into the inner workings of one of the world's most influential companies.
I'm really curious to hear what you've uncovered about their future prospects.
Oh, you're going to love this.
All right.
And the final part of our deep dive,
Okay.
we're going to analyze what the 10K reveals about Apple's roadmap.
Ooh, exciting.
And we'll talk about what it all means for you.
All right, listeners, buckle up.
Get ready for some thought-provoking insights.
Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Okay, so we've dug deep into Apple's finances,
Yeah.
explored their global reach, peeked behind the curtain at how they keep innovating.
Right.
But the million-dollar question is, what's next?
Yeah, what does the future hold for Apple?
I mean, this 10K, it's not exactly a crystal ball,
No.
But it's got to give us some hints, right?
It does. It does.
About Apple's roadmap and what that might mean for, well, all of us.
For all of us, yeah.
Whether you're an Apple fan, an investor, or just, living in this world where tech giants play such a big role.
Right.
So no spoilers, but can you give us a sneak peek?
I can.
What are some of the big trends that jumped out at you?
Well, remember that shift towards services we talked about?
Yeah.
That's not just a side project for Apple.
Right.
It's a fundamental shift in their business.
Okay.
They're really focused on growing that services revenue.
And those profit margins are pretty tempting, right? Oh, yeah. Almost 74% gross margin for services.
That's hard to ignore.
It is.
But they can't just rest on their laurels.
Oh, no. A competition is fierce.
Because they got to keep innovating.
They do.
Coming up with services that are so tightly woven into their ecosystem, so convenient, so compelling that people will just keep paying for them.
Exactly.
So think more personalized experiences, exclusive content, maybe even entirely new service categories we haven't even thought of yet.
Right. And that's where those R&D investments come in.
Nice.
They're pouring money into AI, machine learning, augmented reality.
The buzzwords.
All the buzzwords. But these are the technologies that could really change the game.
Okay, so I'm picturing, like, AI-powered health coaching through my Apple Watch.
Could be.
Or immersive AR experiences that blend seamlessly with the real world. Is that the kind of future Apple's building?
It's definitely possible. I mean, Apple has a history of exceeding expectations.
They do.
Coming up with things we never thought possible.
But it's not just about cool new tech, right?
Right.
They also have to navigate this increasingly tricky regulatory landscape.
They do. Privacy and data security are major concerns these days.
And Apple's kind of walking a tightrope.
They are. They want to use your data to personalize those services.
Right. Make them more addictive.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But they also want to be seen as champions of privacy.
It's a tough balance to strike.
It is.
And then there's that whole App Store issue.
Yeah.
Regulators and developers, they're not happy with Apple's control over the platform.
Right. They've made some changes, but the fundamental tension is still there.
Between their closed ecosystem and the demands for open competition.
Right. That's a battle that's not going away anytime soon.
So what does all this mean for the average person?
Well, if this 10K is any impression, you can expect Apple to keep pushing those boundaries.
Okay.
Blurring the lines between the physical and digital world.
Right.
Devices will become even more integrated, services more personalized.
So a seamless, intuitive experience.
Exactly. But it will come at a cost.
Which is?
Your data.
Right. So we get convenience, we get a curated experience, but Apple gets more insight into our lives.
Exactly. And as consumers, we need to be aware of that trade-off.
Make informed choices about how much we're willing to share.
Right.
And for investors, what's the takeaway here? Is Apple still a good bet?
Well, they have a strong track record.
They do.
A loyal customer base.
Yeah.
And a knack for innovation.
But those risk factors we talked about.
Right.
Competition, regulation, global uncertainty.
All those things could impact their performance.
So don't put all your eggs in the Apple basket.
Right.
But definitely keep an eye on them.
Yeah, they're still a major player in the tech world.
For sure.
And for all of us, whether we're Apple fans or not,
yeah,
it's important to stay informed.
Right.
These tech giants have so much power.
They do.
And their decisions affect all of us.
So we need to hold them accountable. Make sure they're using that power responsibly.
Absolutely.
Well, there you have it, folks.
That's our deep dive
into Apple's 2024 Form 10K.
A fascinating look at one of the most influential companies in the world.
We've explored their past, their present, and gotten a glimpse of what the future might hold.
It's a story of innovation, ambition,
and a relentless pursuit of market dominance.
We hope you've enjoyed the journey.
And that you've gained a better understanding of what's driving Apple.
And the tech industry as a whole.
If you're hungry for more, we encourage you to check out the 10K yourself.
It's a public document.
And it's full of fascinating insights.
And remember, this is just a snapshot in time.
Right.
Apple's story is constantly evolving.
So stay tuned for future deep dives.
We'll keep tracking their progress.
Until then, keep exploring, keep questioning, keep learning.
And thanks for joining us on the Deep Dive.